How did Germany rebuild after World War II? The question seems impossible to answer when you look at the starting point. In 1945, the country was not just defeated, it was shattered. Great cities like Berlin, Hamburg, and Dresden were little more than vast fields of rubble. Millions of homes were gone. Factories, the heart of the nation's industry, were bombed out shells. The bridges, the railways, and the roads were broken. It was a landscape of profound destruction. The scale of the loss was immense, touching every corner of life. Beyond the physical ruin was the human cost. Millions were dead. Millions more were homeless. Millions displaced, or returning from war with nothing. Families were torn apart, searching for loved ones in the chaos. Food was critically scarce. The war ended in May of 1945, but the struggle for survival had just begun. The first priority for millions of Germans was simple: find food, find shelter, stay alive. The official food rationing system was barely functioning. People planted gardens in bomb craters, small patches of land, foraging for firewood in the ruins nearby forests. Life became raw and primitive, stripped to basic needs. Shelter was just as critical. Over a quarter of all housing destroyed, millions were homeless. Basements, damaged buildings, shared tiny apartments with multiple families. The years of the Trümmerfrauen, rubble women. Women clearing cities with makeshift tools, forming human chains, passing bricks and stones hand to hand, cleaning bricks for reuse, grueling, dangerous work, the first step to reclaim the cities. Another massive challenge: the flood of refugees. Around 12 million expelled from Eastern Europe into occupied Germany. They arrived with almost nothing: lost homes, lost land, lost possessions. They needed to be housed, fed, integrated. Aid groups set up soup kitchens, temporary shelters. The refugee influx strained resources but added a vital labor force. Early years defined by improvisation and resilience. Small community networks became the backbone of survival. Neighbors shared what little they had. Bartering replaced the formal economy. Shoes for a bag of potatoes, a day's labor for a few cigarettes. Immense hardship and uncertainty. The goal: endure, not prosper. From survival and mutual aid, the first seeds of recovery began to sprout. By 1948, West Germany was still trapped in economic paralysis. The old currency, the Reichsmark, had become almost worthless. People had lost all faith in it. A person's life savings could barely buy a loaf of bread. As a result, the official economy had ground to a halt. In its place, a massive black market thrived. Cigarettes, coffee, nylon stockings. People would trade valuable family heirlooms for basic food supplies. This system was inefficient and unfair. It rewarded hoarders and speculators. Honest workers found their wages meant nothing. A real recovery could not begin until this problem was solved. The solution came decisively on June 20, 1948. In a bold move, the Allied military authorities, in coordination with German economic advisors, introduced a new currency, the Deutsche Mark. The currency reform was swift and dramatic. Every person was allowed to exchange only a small amount of old money for the new notes. The rest of their cash savings were wiped out. This was a harsh measure, but it was incredibly effective. It instantly eliminated the vast amounts of worthless money flooding the system. It killed the black market overnight. The power of hoarders vanished. The effect was almost magical. The very next day, shop windows that had been empty for years were suddenly filled with goods. Products that had been hoarded and sold only on the black market were now available for purchase with the new, stable currency. People could see real items for sale, and they knew their money had value. This psychological boost was enormous. It restored faith in the economy and gave people a reason to work and save again. The currency reform was the economic equivalent of clearing the rubble. It created a clean, stable foundation on which a new economy could be built. This single policy decision is often cited as the true starting point of Germany's economic recovery. It created price stability and made it possible for businesses to plan for the future. With a reliable currency, companies could once again calculate costs, set prices, and invest in production. Workers knew that their wages would buy them the things they needed. The Deutsche Mark became a symbol of a new beginning, of order returning from chaos. It was the essential first step that made all subsequent economic progress, including the famous miracle, das in Sordiai, Yindatidin Niriburg in the Dobzans. This story is about how Germany answered that question. It is a story of turning ruins into a modern nation. We will walk through the journey step by step, following a clear timeline. Each step was a milestone, a specific problem that needed a solution. Just as the new currency was taking hold, another powerful force for recovery arrived. This was the European Recovery Program, the Marshall Plan. Launched by the United States in 1948, its goal was to rebuild war-torn Europe. The plan mixed generosity with strategic Cold War politics. American leaders saw a stable, prosperous Europe as a strong partner and a bulwark against communism. West Germany, at the heart of a divided continent, was a key recipient. It was a crucial infusion at a critical time. The Marshall Plan gave West Germany about $1.4 billion between 1948 and 1952. Not just cash, funds paid for essential imports Germany couldn't make. Food, cotton, steel, modern machinery. The aid acted like a starter motor for a seized engine. It let German industry get back on its feet to produce for domestic consumption and export. Funds were managed through the Kreditanstalt für Wiederaufbau, KfW. A German firm borrows Deutsche Marks from KfW to buy American machinery. KfW uses Marshall Plan dollars to pay the U.S. supplier. The German firm repays the loan with interest to KfW. That created a revolving fund. Repaid money was lent again to other businesses. The system recycled aid, multiplying its impact. The Marshall Plan did more than just provide money and goods. It also brought American business experts to Germany, who introduced new methods of management production marketing. It fostered cooperation between government, industry, and labor. Most importantly, it sent a political and psychological signal. The aid showed commitment to integrating West Germany with Western democracies. It replaced occupier and occupied with partnership, giving Germans hope and a stake in a peaceful, prosperous future. This was not a single grand event, but a series of deliberate actions taken over many years. It was built on the backs of ordinary men and women who cleared rubble by hand, worked long hours in new factories, and learned to trust in a peaceful future. This essay will explain the key milestones that made Germany's post-war rebuild possible, a calm, steady look at how a miracle was people, plans, and persistence. With a stable currency and foreign aid, West Germany needed a long-term economic philosophy. The nation's leaders rejected pure, unregulated capitalism. They rejected a state-controlled socialist system. They forged the Sozialmarktwirtschaft, the social market economy. It became the guiding principle for reconstruction. The main architect was Ludwig Erhard. His simple motto, as much competition as possible, as much regulation as necessary. A pragmatic approach designed to, unleash economic energy while maintaining social stability. At its core, free enterprise. The government removed barriers to trade, it worked to prevent monopolies from forming, and it encouraged healthy competition among businesses. That created a dynamic environment where entrepreneurs could start companies, innovate, and grow. Competition would drive efficiency, lower prices for consumers, and spur the creation of high-quality products. Erhard believed a free and open market was the most powerful engine for creating wealth. He lifted many price controls and lifted many regulations right after the currency reform, a risky move that ultimately paid off. However, this was not a system of sink-or-swim capitalism. The social part of the name was just as important. The government built a strong social safety net to protect its citizens. That included a comprehensive national health insurance system, unemployment benefits, and a state-supported pension program for the elderly. The state also worked on affordable housing and supporting families. This social contract gave people a sense of security. If they lost their job or fell ill, they would not be abandoned. That security made people more willing to embrace change and risk. This balanced model was a key ingredient in Germany's success. It fostered cooperation between employers and workers. Labor unions were given a formal role, negotiating wages and negotiating working conditions. By the early 1950s, all the pieces were in place. A stable currency, Marshall Plan aid, and the social market economy created the perfect conditions for explosive growth. What followed was so rapid and so profound that it was dubbed the Wirtschaftswunder, the German for economic miracle. From 1950 to 1960, the West German economy grew at an astonishing average rate of about 8% per year. Unemployment, once a massive problem, plummeted. By the end of the decade, Germany was facing a labor shortage and began inviting guest workers from other countries to fill jobs. This miracle was visible on the streets and in people's homes. Factories that had been rubble were now humming with activity, many operating 24 hours a day. Germany re-established its reputation for high-quality engineering and manufacturing. Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz, Siemens, and Bayer became famous around the world. The country became an export powerhouse, selling cars, machinery. The money pouring in from these exports fueled further investment, creating a virtuous cycle of growth that seemed unstoppable. For ordinary Germans, the Wirtschaftswunder transformed daily life. Wages rose steadily, and for the first time since before the war, families had disposable income. The era of scarcity gave way to an age of consumption. People began to buy things that were once considered luxuries: a radio, a refrigerator, a telephone. The ultimate symbol of this new prosperity was the automobile. The affordable Volkswagen Beetle put car ownership within reach of the average family, giving them a newfound sense of freedom and mobility. This wave of consumption was not just a result of the miracle, it also helped to drive it by creating huge domestic demand for German products. The economic miracle was not truly a miracle in the supernatural sense. It was the logical outcome of smart policies, a favorable global economic environment, and above all, the hard work and discipline of the German people. Having endured years of war and deprivation, the population had a powerful desire to rebuild their lives and create a better future for their children. They embraced long working hours and had a high savings rate, which provided capital for investment. The Wirtschaftswunder was the fruit of a collective national effort, a testament to what can be achieved when a society is united in a common purpose. The economic miracle was transforming balance sheets, but the physical scars of war remained on the landscape. Rebuilding the nation's cities was a task of staggering proportions. In the early years, the focus was purely functional. Planners and architects prioritized building simple, sturdy, affordable housing as quickly as possible. Huge apartment blocks rose on the outskirts of cities, often built with prefabricated concrete slabs. These buildings were not always beautiful, they were warm, safe, and modern. They provided millions of families with their first proper homes since the war, complete with indoor plumbing and central heating. As the economy strengthened, urban planning became more ambitious. City planners saw the destruction as a unique opportunity to redesign cities for the modern age. They moved away from the dense, narrow streets of the past. The new vision was for a more open, functional city: wide roads, residential zones, commercial zones, industrial zones, parks, public squares. This modernist approach aimed to create healthier, more efficient urban environments. The new city centers were often characterized by clean lines, large glass windows, and a focus on accessibility. The reconstruction was not just about buildings, it was about infrastructure. An enormous effort went into repairing and expanding transportation networks. Bombed-out bridges were rebuilt with stronger, modern designs. The Autobahn was repaired and expanded, linking industrial centers. Railway lines, stations were reconstructed for people and goods. Ports like Hamburg were rebuilt as international trade hubs. This investment in infrastructure was the hidden skeleton of the growing economy. This period of rebuilding permanently changed the face of Germany. Some historic centers were restored, many others were lost and replaced by 1950s-60s architecture. The transformation was sometimes controversial, but it was driven by a forward-looking spirit. The goal was to build a new, modern, and functional Germany. The new cities symbolized a new identity: practical, prosperous, and oriented toward the future. Rebuilding Germany was about more than just economics. It required the construction of a new society and a new political system. One of the most immediate social challenges was the integration of the 12 million refugees and expellees from Eastern Europe. This was a massive demographic shock. These newcomers needed housing, jobs, and a place in society. The government launched large-scale programs to build housing settlements and provide job training. While there were initial tensions and resentments, the booming economy of the Wirtschaftswunder created enough jobs for nearly everyone. At the same time, West Germany had to build a stable democracy from the ruins of a totalitarian dictatorship. Under the guidance of the Western Allies, German political leaders drafted a new constitution, known as the Basic Law, Grundgesetz. This document was carefully designed to prevent the mistakes of the past. It established a federal republic, with a strong system of checks and balances. It protected fundamental human rights, and created an independent judiciary. A process called denazification was carried out to remove former high-ranking Nazis from positions of influence. Though its implementation was often inconsistent and difficult, the goal was to create a political culture based on law, freedom, and democratic participation. A strong workforce was essential, and Germany invested heavily in education and vocational training. The country revitalized its traditional apprenticeship system, a dual-track program where young people split their time between classroom instruction and hands-on training at a company. This system produced a steady supply of highly skilled workers, mechanics, electricians, technicians, who were the backbone of Germany's high-quality manufacturing sector. This focus on practical skills ensured that the workforce could meet the demands of a modern industrial economy. Strong, independent labor unions also played a crucial role, working with employers to negotiate fair wages and working conditions, which created industrial peace and stability. Over time, a new German identity began to form, one defined by its commitment to democracy, peace, and European cooperation. The nation slowly began to confront its dark past, a painful process that would continue for decades. Schools started to teach the history of the Nazi era and the Holocaust. Museums and memorials were established to ensure that the victims would not be forgotten. This process of coming to terms with history, combined with the successful creation of a prosperous and stable democracy, allowed West Germany to regain the trust of its neighbors and re-enter the international community as a respected partner. The journey was powered by people, from Trümmerfrauen to engineers to leaders, each building upon the last. Each element was connected, each step building upon the last. Germany's recovery was a cornerstone of Western Europe's reconstruction. Stable institutions, international cooperation, investment in people, and a shared vision shaped decades of peace and prosperity. The story of Germany's post-war reconstruction is a powerful testament to the possibility of renewal. From the absolute devastation of 1945, a stable, prosperous, and democratic nation emerged. This transformation was not a miracle, but the result of a series of deliberate and intelligent choices. Key milestones paved the way. The currency reform of 1948 created a stable economic foundation. The Marshall Plan provided the critical resources to restart industry. The social market economy offered a brilliant blueprint for balancing free market dynamism with social security, creating a climate of cooperation and shared purpose. The journey was powered by people. It was the resilience of the Trümmerfrauen clearing rubble, the hard work of laborers in reopened factories, the skills of engineers designing new products, and the foresight of leaders like Ludwig Erhard. The successful integration of millions of refugees provided the manpower for the economic boom. A deep investment in vocational training created a world-class workforce, and a commitment to building a new democracy, founded on the rule of law and human rights, provided the political stability necessary for long-term success. Today, on October 24, 2025, a look at modern Germany reveals a nation that has fully emerged from the shadows of its past. The ruins have been replaced by vibrant cities. The despair has been replaced by a confident, forward-looking society. The story of Germany's rise from the rubble is more than just a chapter of history. It serves as a hopeful reminder that even after the most profound destruction, societies can rebuild. With steady work, wise policy, and a collective will to move forward, it is possible to build a future that is not only different from the past, but profoundly better. Currency reform, Marshall Plan, social market economy, infrastructure, democracy, people, a blueprint etched in history, and a lesson for tomorrow.